Okay, so before the lunch break, we covered a lot of territory. We started talking about just, closing your eyes and doing a little bit of coaching on the trance signals you've been seeing. You found some principles like the authority principle, the hypnotic voice that actually tends to accentuate things, some hypnotic thoughts you can present to them that will make them more trancey. And that evolved into creating language, softener, power words, and trance themes, all of which is the linguistic aspect that allow you to have more of an impact. Would that be fair to say? Yeah? So, and then before the lunch break, the last thing that you did is you did a quick exercise where you kind of did all of it, or as much of it as you can, focusing particularly on the power words and the trance themes, right? So you probably recognize if I say, you can all relax and feel comfortable. And there's a difference between relaxing and relaxing. Because you can feel calm. Oh, calm, calm. So again, it's not the words, although it is the words, isn't it? So what I'd like you to do now is, I'd like for you to choose just a simple trance theme for now. Something like relaxation and calmness, peace, something like that. And you'll do the same exercise you did before the lunch break, only this time. What I'd like you to do before you begin is I'd like you to reflect back on your life. You've had a life. Some of you had more than one, who knows? Most of you have had a life that's lasted longer than a few months. And sometime in that period that you've been alive, you have felt comfort, calmness, and relaxation, have you not? If you were to cast your mind back through the annals of history, your personal history, it shouldn't be anything but easy to find at least one example of an experience you had where you actually really felt calm, peaceful, relaxed. Would that be fair to say? I'd like you to select one of those, one which you find particularly relaxing, peaceful, calming, and so on. And just, if all of you just raise your hands up in the air and put it down only when you've actually got a specific memory in mind. So everyone raise your hands up in the air. And as soon as you have a specific memory in mind, you can put your hand down. So I'll know that as soon as all the hands are down, we're ready to continue with this. Just a specific memory of some time when you were calm, relaxed, peaceful. You'll know you have the right one because when you think about it now, you should feel more relaxed. Do you? Yeah? So here's what we're going to do. In a moment, you're going to be with your partners. I want you to just take a moment to just close your eyes as a hypnotist and recall the feeling of that memory. Recall that memory in detail. Then, I'd like you to open your eyes, look at your partner, and ask them to close their eyes and go into a trance. And then do as much of what you did this morning as you want, focusing again on particularly the power words and the trance themes being relaxation, peacefulness, anything that fits that memory that you have. Do not talk about that memory. It's going to be just like you did before the lunch break. The only difference is you will yourself be feeling differently because whilst you're talking, you'll be remembering that pleasant experience. Do you understand what I'm asking you to do? It's a little bit of a multitasking thing. So here's the only caveat, the only thing I want you to think about in case it's the only place it might go wrong. If you find yourself in this wonderful, pleasant memory, and you start talking about it, and it's great, you still feel that memory exuding whilst you're talking about whatever else you're talking about. If at any point you do something that jars the memory inside you, then stop it. So go back to only talking as slowly and comfortably yourself as it resonates with the memory that you have. Do you understand what I'm asking you to do, yes? Yeah? So, I'm going to give you 45 seconds apiece. This is going to be like insanely long. That's an hour and a minute and a half. With your partners, please begin now. How was that? Was that more fun? You enjoyed that? Who here was reluctant to change roles? Like, no, you keep talking. Yeah? Just think about it. Have you forgotten to pretend to be a great hypnotic subject and just ended up enjoying it? Anyone done that? I guess you're ahead of us. That's day 2 material here. Who's finding themselves really enjoying the parts of these experiences when your eyes are closed? Let's put your hands up, please. That, folks, if we can call that hypnosis for now, then that just makes you a hypnotist, doesn't it? Can you get better at it? Of course. But are you getting a positive result so far? Yes. Is it really that difficult? No. Yet people are responding to your suggestions, aren't they? So it's an interesting thing to keep in mind. So we'll call this little memory you had a personal trance theme. It's a personal memory that you have, and you have several, that evokes the qualities inside of you that a hypnosis experience has, right? I call this whole thing the idea of going first. If you want someone to get excited, do you go, yay, let's get excited? We have so many great things to do today. You're going to love it. It's great. Does that inspire excitement and enthusiasm in people? Yeah. That is the only correct answer, right? Yeah. This is the manic depressives all love Igor society. Yay, you're great. Sometimes. So in order to be hypnotists, there is a certain element of performance that we have to deal with as well. And the simplest way of performing at what you're doing is to just live it. It's kind of a method acting. So I'm going to ask you to do the same exercise again with a different partner inside your group. This time, you're going to start off with your personal trance. And did you notice how it changed the quality of your language? Yes? Who found them using more of this hypnotic voice that we talked about earlier today? Who found that voice, those voice qualities becoming more accentuated, right? If you haven't found them becoming accentuated, then spend more time in your personal trance theme, really feel the emotion, and your voice will follow, right? Unless you force it not to, which would be strange, but all right. So you're going to have your hypnotic voice increasing. Who, as a hypnotist, found themselves kind of being sucked into your own trance a little bit more as well? Hands up. As a result of which, put your hands up if you found that coming up with the right things to say was kind of easier and easier as you went along. Who didn't find that? Put your hands up. Whilst you're finding it difficult to get these the words out and so on, how were you feeling at those points? Were you feeling the thing that your personal trancing was around, which was like relaxed, comfortable, remembering that memory, going, oh, this is so great. I have no idea what I want to talk to you about, but this is great. You were feeling that? But you still had a problem with it? Can we have the mic? Jakob, could you just pass the mic down there? Can we have the mic on, Steve?
Yep, there we go. Like being this nice in trance as a hypnotist, I was lost for words. I couldn't get the flow of words.
What were you doing?
Being in trance myself, being relaxed and calm, and asking the other one to go in his memory and image and be calm and relaxed. And
at which point did you run out of words?
That I did not use a flow of vocabulary with all the power words and the trance themes.
So it's not so much that you ran out of words, it's just you don't think you used the right ones.
No, there were less words.
Oh, that's fine. Who said anything about having more words?
Thank you.
Great. For the rest of you who had difficulty, would it be fair to say that the difficulty of finding the words wasn't so much a question of doing it right with less words? It was more a question of your mindset was in a different place. Would that be fair for those of you who had problems with this? Right? So then, either you get to continue to do the learning of one of two paths. Either you continue to explore how difficult hypnosis is when your mindset's in the wrong place, or you stop it and discover that it's easy. And the way you stop it is by starting with your personal trance, really engaging in the feeling that memory brings up inside you, and letting that then evoke the language and stuff like that follows, as much or as little as seems appropriate with your partner. Get the idea? Any questions on that? All right, so here's the exercise. I'd like for you now to, this is going to be a little bit more conversational. You can use your power words and trance themes if you want as part of that conversation, but just have a little chat with your partner. And I want you to use two types of trance themes, although we haven't really talked about one of them yet. The one is the one you're used to, relaxation, peacefulness, and so on, right? These are more relaxed, comfortable. You can feel that general ambience. The other I want you to switch back to is one which feels more powerful, invigorating, enthusiastic. I'd like you to choose a more powerful, invigorating, enthusiastic memory that you will not tell them about and you will not ask them to think about. You're just going to talk in general about anything. Horses, for all I care. But whenever you come across a personal trance theme like the word relax, notice I'm using the word relax, not as relax, but as relax. I'm imbuing it with more of that quality in its sound by accessing the feeling of that memory. The same with power. Power does not sound like relax, does it? Or does it? So when you say the word, I could say power. Yeah, an excitement. Really going for it, right? And I'm very incongruous in terms of what I'm communicating. So part of your skill as a conversational hypnotist, and that includes whether eyes are open or their eyes are closed, it's irrelevant, is being able to switch your tonality to match, to imbue each word with life of its own. You get the idea? And your personal trance themes are your gateway for doing that. So does everyone have a nice, powerful, or invigorating memory inside their mind? Put your hands up if you haven't got one yet. Put your hands up if you haven't got one yet. Think about something in your life. You've had lots of highs in your life, haven't you? Right? A success of some sort, passing the exam and going you didn't think you'd make and you're getting it, achieving something, the thrill of going on a date with someone that you didn't know before, or maybe you did, and that's why it was thrilling. A birth of a child, right? You get the idea? So you've all had experiences in your life that are somehow empowering, thrilling, exciting, and so on. So the last few are there. Yeah, make it positive, and that's good. So now you have one calming trance theme and one invigorating trance theme, or personal trance theme. Would that be fair to say? Now just have a normal chat and try and steer it towards words, not concepts, but just words that match the memory. So the calming one would be calmness, peacefulness, relaxation, and so on. The invigorating one might be excitement, energy, power, enthusiasm, and so on. But don't talk about your specific memory or their specific memory. Just talk. Does that make sense? If you're more comfortable with then talking at someone with when they've got their eyes closed, tell them to close their eyes and just talk at them. If you want to keep their eyes open, they keep their eyes open. They're going to have no response verbally to you. They're just going to listen, and then you'll switch over. So this is just a little ranting session again. But one where you get to ride the roller coaster of language and experience combined to assist each other rather than detract from each other. Do you get the idea of this? Any questions? Because this is a bit of a novel thing, I'm going to be really generous and give you a minute each. Oh my God, this is like crazy time. So it's going to be, here we go. So find a different partner, folks, in your groups. And begin now. So how did that go? What kind of things did you notice? Stand up and grab the mic if you're ready for it. Stand up.
It's a fantastic exercise. I noticed that what I was saying had so much more power, and I could see it in the other person, and I could feel it in myself, and it's much easier than expected.
We tend to be in such a rush to say things, we forget to make a point of how to say them. Anything that's worth saying is worth saying well. Not necessarily right, but well. Do you understand the difference? And we rush things in our culture a lot, which means a lot of things, we focus on saying things so right, we don't say them well. And you're better off saying them well than saying them right. You understand what I mean by that, yes? And then hopefully this experience has started to build it up to you. So it's actually okay. This is where the less is more syndrome comes in. You can actually get away with saying a lot less because a lot more is packed into what things you do say because you said them so well. And as part of, for example, how certain literature works, or poems in particular work, they say more with less because they've taken the time to say them well. Not necessarily right, though. You get the idea? The back here, just stand up and we'll get the mic to you.
Yeah, hello everybody. I find it really beautiful having these exercises, especially you can see the pregnant words which you want to, just sending through to the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And you can catch them back as well,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that we take for granted, but when you do this exercise, it clicks back, you always hear them.
Yeah, it does click right in. And the beauty of every single exercise you've done so far, and those folks back home, hello, you'll be hopefully doing it at home, is you can do it at your leisure, anytime, any place, anywhere, especially with friends. The worst that you can do is if you have like no friends and no life outside of hypnosis, that's fine if that's the way you want to encapsulate your life. You still have people in this room that you can call up and do an exercise with. I mean, nowadays with like online programs like Skype and whatever, it's even free, right? And all of these exercises themselves, they develop a certain skill, a little talent, which on its own is very simple to do. But have you noticed how already since this morning, how far you've come, how much you're doing, but how relatively simple it feels to do it all, yes? Now, I appreciate, from time to time, it may seem like a lot of moving parts are going on right now, because they are. I mean, look at all this stuff. This is not even, we haven't even finished day one, and look at all the stuff that we've gone through. Isn't that quite an amount of content we've gone through? Yet you're all doing it relatively naturally and spontaneously. Why? Because every single one of you has done this already in your day-to-day lives. You've had many conversations where you've said things well and had exactly the impact you wanted. You've had many conversations where you seamlessly and naturally flowed with ideas, where you managed to excite someone or relax them. And of course, spaced out between them, sometimes more, sometimes less, you've had all the other conversations that were a little more frustrating, didn't quite work out the way you wanted them to, and so on. So what we're doing here is not so much training you in something new, but actually teaching you what those old things are you already know that are worth emphasizing, so you can get rid of everything else, because less really is more at that point. You get the idea? Do you stand up? Can we have the mic over here, please?
For me, it was a surprise that I changed when I got prepared to emotions for me, that it was really easy to change the state. And then I was surprised because the content go out of me. I didn't really thought about that, but it just
it was natural,
it was
right?
flow. Because I just felt the way I should speak. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So does anyone else could have had that same experience where you no longer have to pay attention to the content as much because the right thing seems to be there? This is where the mindset thing is something really important. We're really taking apart the machinery, in fact, the rocket fuel that makes hypnosis work. This is what some people call hypnotic intent. A lot of people, especially who've trained with me, know it as H+. We'll develop this idea further and further. But you notice how even as today has progressed, the more we get into the mental aspect of what we're doing here, not what we're doing to someone else, but what you do for yourself inside your own mind as the hypnotist, the more powerful your communication style has become, has it not? It's because you already possess all the tools that you need to become exquisite communicators, exquisite hypnotists, suggesters. What you need is the right mental machinery to select only those experiences, only those abilities that you happen to need at that point in time. Does this make sense to you guys? And this is what we're doing here. And you've just experienced for yourself, Jakub, this whole idea of when you go first, when your mindset is in the right place, you can't run out of words. You don't have nothing to say. As long as you have some kind of purpose you're trying to achieve, which this emotional game does, and you're willing to go first, to switch your own mindset first, everything else becomes natural. The only challenge to you will be is, can you continue this process, these mental games you've been playing with yourselves in here, and take them out there in the real world with real people? Because if all he did was what you've learned so far, and none of the actual bells and whistles that we'll be starting to layer on top of this, I suspect virtually everyone in this room should at least double their ability to be influential and impactful on others. You get the idea? So thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Just stand up.
I don't know if anyone else felt this way, but for me, what surprised me was that it almost doesn't matter what you say to me. I could go into a trance very easily. You could read me a soup can or say, it doesn't matter. And actually, it doesn't matter about, for me, the sound of your voice or anything, which is pretty exciting.
Well, this is great. Are you
It's
saying,
really exciting.
if I tell you, relax, close your eyes, go to a trance now, it'll happen?
No,
You're really going to
but
get
no,
an enjoyable
but-
chance like this?
But no one's doing that.
No.
Everybody's very well predisposed, so that's
And
also a
that-
predisposition in my mind. I
So
am
let-
predisposed to be in the trance.
Let me just pause you there. That is the key factor right there. Because you spend more of today getting to the right state of mind than being stuck in the wrong state of mind. All the technical skills we've been talking about are natural. They feel natural because they're natural when they're in the right place in the mind. This is a good point as any to talk about places in the mind. Imagine that your mind is like a big mansion full of rooms. Each room is what we'll call a state, an emotional way of being, although it's more than just emotional content. Whenever you are in a particular state of mind, you're in a particular room inside your mansion. Whatever experiences you have whilst in that state of mind get stored as memories inside of that room. In psychology, this is called state-dependent learning or state-dependent behavior. Again, feel free to look it up. It's a bigger topic. It's actually a very researched thing, especially in the 70s. So when you're in your happy room, in other words, when you're feeling happy, you have easy access to all the memories that you were happy in, don't you? Think about your own life. It's easy to recall successes, good friends, good times, and all the rest of it. And if someone tries to be a party pooper and remind you of some unpleasant thing, you'll go like, it's just this, and it just, yeah, kind of, but I don't really remember it, right? Now, of course, on other days, you're in the sad room, or the unhappy room, or the I'm upset with people room, right? No one's got an I'm upset with someone else room in their house, but I guess I'm unique in that one. But when you're angry with someone, when you're sad, what memories do you have access to then? Anyone here in a relationship with someone? I know you've never had this experience that when you get upset by them, but something they just did, suddenly you remember like all the 15 years of mistakes they've made since before then, right? That's the dependent learning. Hypnosis works the same way. Right now, what you're doing is you're building a hypnosis room inside your mind. We'll call this the H+. I'll explain tomorrow why we call it that. But it's essentially a hypnosis room. And you're going to store all your skills, your abilities, and attitudes about hypnosis in the hypnosis room where it belongs. So that when you need hypnosis, you know exactly where to find it. And when you don't have to go there. Does this make sense to you guys? Essentially, right now, all these exercises are doing is allowing you to visit all your other memories, all your other experiences, and collect those specific memories as little trophies and pictures and so on that relate to the hypnosis room so you can relocate them. You get the idea? Now, if you do this thoroughly, which is what we're doing, we'll be spending a lot of time over the next few days doing this, you'll find that as soon as you switch on, as soon as you even think about your hypnosis room, everything starts coming flooding back, which is easy. It makes life a lot easier for you because you don't have to remember millions of scripts. You don't have to remember all these different principles. All you do is literally like switching on a light. Boom, oh, here I am. Oh, I know what to do now. And the only times you won't know what to do is when you're not in that room. And it's your choice. Leave and go into the hypnosis room so you can get good at it, or wallow in the I'm not good enough room for as long as you want, realizing that's a personal choice you just made. Does it make sense to you guys? So thank you for that. There was another hand over here, or is that now defunct? Just stand up and we'll get the mic to you.
Well, just two things. I was playing the role of the hypnotist. I felt as if I crammed quite a lot in, maybe too much that had
Clammed?
crammed.
Oh yeah,
too,
like
too,
you got, yeah.
too much content and information.
Mm-hmm.
But then when my partner played the hypnotist, I felt as if she had as much content and there was pauses that I was aware of that seemed to have a beneficial effect and a deepening as well. Just two different experiences, and I thought.
So if I understand you correctly, when you were the hypnotist, you felt that you were a little rushed, you were saying too much. And when you were the subject, you found that although they were saying just as much, they seemed to have more time to just take pauses,
That's
more
correct.
at ease and so on, right? So what are you going to take from that?
It was almost as if they were identical, except I was at the other end of it. Watching it was different from receiving it.
So then
I
really,
just-
it
I
wasn't
just
really
slowed down.
what you were saying, it's something going on inside your mind, wasn't it?
Yes.
So if you're feeling clammed or cramped up inside your mind, well, that's not necessarily going to help you as a hypnotist, is it?
No.
So you have a choice. Continue to explore that as a phenomenon or stop it
Okay.
and make your life easier. I'm serious.
Yes.
Because remember, whilst I'm giving you a lot of possibilities to do, I am very much aware that there's not enough time to do them all. And I'm also very much aware that, or you should also be aware that you're only being asked to add one little thing to focus on. You do as much of the other stuff as is relevant, which means you don't have to do all of it at the same time. You can if you wish to, or not. Okay? All right, folks, so it's time to move on a little bit. So, power words. You've been using them this morning. You probably fell into a few who found themselves doing language softeners and power words and trance themes by accident in the last exercise. Just put your hands up. All right? You see what happens when you go into the hypnosis room? The stuff starts naturally coming out automatically, right? So the question is, can anyone who hasn't trained with me before, anyone have any idea of what is the principle that makes power words work? Any ideas? The link to ideas. Absolutely. What is the principle that expresses?
Law of association.
As I said, anyone who hasn't trained with me before. So yes, this is the law of association. The fundamental building block of how your unconscious mind reasons is through associations. If you ask some psychologists and neuroscientists, was one of the philosophy of psychology questions really is how do we learn things in the first place? And one of the key ideas is usually we associate this to that, to this, to that, and so on. Now, there's a kind of logic that the unconscious mind has as well, but the primary core basic function is through the law of associations. Think of the dreams you've had. You've had dreams which may be very short, but were very full of content and meaning, right? It might be something as simple as seeing a shoe, and that shoe meant so much. It meant, growing up, your family childhood, being the third in line, which means you got all the hand-me-downs, but actually being kind of happy because you got to kick the football a few more times because it didn't matter so much. And everything is in that one little shoe. There's a host of memories, and all you had was a split second to think of that shoe, and it all came flooding back. Would that be? You've had experiences like this and dreams like this, right? So the law of association can be very efficient, very effective even. The other thing that the power words do, so they link two ideas that weren't necessarily linked beforehand. Hence, if I say to you, go into a trance, your conscious mind might say, what the hell? How? What? But if I say to you, close your eyes and you'll go into a trance, well, you consciously know how to control one, and you're unconsciously more likely to respond to the other. It's only a probability. But if you stack enough probabilities, you get as close to a certainty as is possible in this life. You get the idea? The other thing the power words do is they create a smooth chain of ideas. Everyone close your eyes for a moment, if you would. If you and I were to go to a beach, I would probably show you a particular beach on a beautiful sunny day that was beautiful white sand and a blue turquoise ocean. Now, if you and I were on this beach, you'd probably be able to sense the temperature of the sand. If you were wearing shoes at the time, you could take them off at any point and feel the sand between your toes. There might even be a mild breeze, so that whilst the sun is warm, it's not too hot. I wonder if those waves would be rolling in, and if there was a sound attached or associated to that. You could look at the ocean and even get a sense of that briny, salty sea air. Because if you turn around and you saw an elephant staring down at you with his trunk held high. So come on back, open your eyes. With that last bizarre image there. So what happened there? Hands up that when I mentioned the elephant, who here got a little bit annoyed with me, who lost the kind of the experience? Put your hand right up in the air. It's okay, I won't mind. It's about a third of the room. Here's the interesting part. Who here, when I brought the elephant in, went, elephant? All right. And just went right along with it. Most of the room. We'll explain this phenomenon in a moment. Who here changed the beach to somewhere where an elephant would be relevant, like say to Africa or something like that? Put your hands up. In other words, you did something in order to make the image permissible. So notice we have a couple of things going on. For some of you, more of you, a fewer of you than would be the norm, just because we're doing a lot of hypnotic exercises already. We'll explain the phenomenon in a moment. More of you basically felt, or at least a few of you, like a third of you, felt the jarring effect and were unhappy with me, detracted from your experience. Would that be fair to say? At least some of you, you don't have to identify yourself if you don't want to, would have been unhappy enough with me that you, in fact, I saw a few of you open your eyes and were like, what? What'd you go and ruin that lovely little experience for me for, right? I'm glad you're not a man of violence. Yet. You don't keep doing these, right? So what's going on there? How can most of you, or at least about 2/3 of the room, have a really pleasant experience despite this weird imagery, and about a third of the room get upset with me about it? What I've done is I have violated the law of associations, and in doing so, I have activated a different mechanism inside your mind by jarring it. The elephant did not fit that scene. I invited you into a beach, didn't I? A sunny, warm beach. What things, just by the association of your experience, of your lifetime experiences, what fits? Waves, sea. I did this in America, and talking about the ocean didn't help because he was thinking about one of the Great Lakes, right? It's not salty. Birds. Sand, warmth, difference between the dry sand and the wet sand on the bottom, right? You get the idea? Elephants do not sit in our typical folder of things we associate to beaches, right? Unless you've been growing up in India or Thailand or something like that, in which case elephants fit pretty much anywhere, right? So by violating your expectations or your associations that you already have built up over a lifetime, I triggered a mental mechanism. Now, in those of you who I triggered the mental mechanism, it basically spoiled the trance for you to one degree or another. At least it diminished it. The rest of you, however, despite the break, were willing to go along with it anyways, weren't you? He's like, elephant? Yeah, you know what? I could get upset about this, but who cares? Elephant, sure, why not? It's too nice to argue over this one, right? So what's happening there? Any ideas? Go ahead.
I think some people they have a structured idea of how it has to be, not how it is, but how they think it has to be. But when you can elevate it and you can just let go, and then, yeah, why not? That's my way, how I do it.
So
Maybe some other people do it different, but
the
that's
concept
my
of letting
way.
go is correct. In fact, your whole idea is pretty much on the button, but I want to look at it more functionally. What is being activated? There's another one over here. What is being activated inside the mind? Just stand up and we'll get a mic to you. What is actually being activated inside the mind when that's happening, right? You're very close to the answer here. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if it's something that's been activated.
Just
but
lift up a little bit.
I'm not sure if it's something that's being activated, but it seems that it's a trust thing partly.
The trust thing is exactly what is the mechanism that activates it, is one of those things. Over here. I'll give you the answer in a minute. I mean, I'm not going to expect you to read my mind. I'm just teasing you a bit. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, the likes of a really comfortable chair in a countryside, would that be classed as the same thing? Would it disassociate them from the scene?
It breaks the expectation the law of association is already set up, and something happens in that break. It introduces something else, and that's what we're interested in it. The thing that introduced it, seeing as we might as well go down that road now, is what we know, and the different hypnotists call it different things, but it's essentially called the critical factor. Now, what is this critical factor? You will find many, many, many different definitions of critical factor. In fact, you'll probably find a few more definitions of the critical factor than you'll find of hypnosis, and you'll find about as many definitions of hypnosis as there are hypnotists. So I guess a few hypnotists are schizophrenic enough to come up with several versions of the critical factor. So I'm not going to try and get too technical about the whole thing. The way I look at the idea of the critical factor in a very simplistic way is going back to the idea of rooms in the mind. We have a yes room and a no room. Inside the yes room, people look for any reason they can to agree with you, to accept something of what you're saying. Even if 99% of it is BS and useless and they want to get rid of it, they'll focus on the one thing of value to keep. And you've all done that before, right? Any parents in the room? You've never done this with your kids, have they? To come in all proud and think, look what I created, Mummy or Daddy. And you go, I have no idea what the hell this is. It's great. This is beautiful, tall thing. What is it? Right? You found the one thing. Yes, it is tall, isn't it? Yes, it's tall. That's exactly what it is. You found the one thing you can agree with. Even the rest of it just makes no sense. Right? Then inside the no room, the opposite effect takes place. And it depends on how deep into the no room you go. But in the no room, this is where people start finding any reason to reject it, even if it's the most tiny little thing. And that's what they focus on. So these are the kind of people, when you say, it's a beautiful sunny day, oh, I'm going to get cancer. Oh, congratulations, you just got a pay rise. I'm going to have to pay more the tax man now. Right? And of course, these naysayers, they're a joy to behold and work with, aren't they? So the reason I make this distinction is because a lot of people, hypnotists in particular, have made the mistake of believing that someone with an analytical mind, someone who is very smart, is someone that can't really be hypnotized. There's low hypnotizability because they'll overthink it and then they'll destroy it and all the rest of it. But that's not the case at all. The only thing that destroys the hypnotic process, that inhibits it, is this critical factor, the room inside your mind that chooses to say no. You get the idea? Go ahead, can we have a mic over there? Just stand up so we can all see you.
I was wondering how specific one should be because of that. Should one leave it rather nebulous and so that the client can make their own interpretation? I worked with somebody once who had a phobia of sharks, and it didn't go very well when we were walking by the sea.
Sure.
So I just wondered whether...
No, for sure. And this is exactly a thing that you need to... first of all, remember, we're doing conversation hypnosis, so this won't really come up as much. Because when you say, I love going on a holiday, I went to the beach the other day, and they'll go... You'll probably know that, yeah, but I prefer the woods, don't you? You just basically switch on a dime because you can do that in a conversation. So we're not going down the therapeutic path. To answer your question very quickly, though, is you can simply ask them up front, right? And if they don't like it, you'll probably see one of these things, so you just switch direction straight away. Don't leave it too abstract, because if it's too abstract, there's no content at all. There's nothing at all. I'd like to take you to some wonderful place. It's a really nice place that you really like. Are you there yet? Which some people, if they're more entranced, more in that yes room, will go, yes, I am. Great, tell me about it. And they'll take notes, and well, that's really nice. Next client comes in, I'll tell them exactly the same thing, right? But for the most part, you'll find that both approaches have a value. It's just a question of where on that sliding scale you wish to stand, okay? But anyway, coming back to the critical factor, what I'd like to do now is I'd like you to experiment a little bit with these yes-no rooms. Is that okay with you guys? So here's what we're going to do. You can do as much or as little of all this stuff that we've been doing this morning as you wish. Honestly, I don't mind. All right? I will encourage you to really to continue to focus on those portions of what we've been doing that are just performance-related, the authority element, the hypnotic voice, your own personal trance themes, and this idea of squeezing the meaning from your words to make them more meaningful. These sort of things here, I strongly encourage you to really make your staple, because it's a great thing to just internalize. And it's easy to do, isn't it? So next, what I want to do is when you talk about your trance themes, like relaxation, comfort, all that sort of stuff, I want you to precede it by just a very simple litany of facts. Those facts don't have to have any rhyme or reason. The only thing that those facts have got to have is they've got to be true enough that the person will absolutely agree to them. For example, if I said to a lady, you're wearing a shirt, she might think, no, that's a blouse. I don't know if she makes the same distinction in her mind. Does that make sense? But I can for sure. I can definitely say you're wearing a top. You're wearing something. You're clothed, right? No, I'm standing here naked. All right, back away slowly from the crazy lady. But you get the idea here, yes? I'd like you to spend. We'll have 45 seconds again for this one. I'm going to spend just really close your eyes, go into a trance, do some trance signals, whatever, and then just literally just list random facts that you know they must agree with. At the end of which, just spend a couple of minutes doing your trance themes and power words, just like we did before the lunch break. You get the idea? So basically, it's exactly the same. We're doing less than before. It's just, in order to warm up to the power words and trance themes, you're just going to give them a random set of facts in your hypnotic voice and rhythm and all that sort of stuff, just to see what impact that has. Then we'll come back, we'll do another exercise to compare it to, and we'll have a chat about that. Sound good to you guys? 45 seconds apiece and a minute and a half in total. Off you go, folks. All right, guys. Was that interesting? Was that fun? Yeah? Notice that you had to sort of experiences it as the person with the eyes closing the subject versus the hypnotist. To contrast this now, I'd like you to do this with a different person, a different partner in your side group. I'm going to give you slightly longer. I'm going to give you a minute apiece, so 60 seconds in total, or 2 minutes in total, 60 seconds each. In that minute, you're going to be doing two things to contrast them now. This is the warm-up act. You're going to start off by close your eyes, go into a trance, yada yada, whatever you want to warm-up stuff you want to do. Then I want you to collect 5 or 6 simple facts that are plainly wrong. Totally wrong. Something they will go, what the hell's wrong with you, man? Right? Let's not go down the obscene route, just in case anyone's going down one. But just wrong, like the moon is made of cheese. It isn't. You're sitting here naked and loving it. Stuff that they're clearly not going to agree with, right? This is the important part. Just find 5 or 10 of those things. There's only about 10 seconds doing that part. Then spend a few seconds going into your trance themes and power word cycle again, right? That'll take about the first 30 seconds. In the second 30 seconds, I want you to move smoothly into collecting facts that are actually true, or at least true enough that they'll agree with them, just like you did in the previous exercise. At the end of collecting 5 or 6 or 10 little facts that they will absolutely agree with and just listing them out just clunkily, as clumsy as you want, I want you to go back to this idea of hypnotic trance themes and the power words. And I want you to notice the difference you can observe as a hypnotist inside your subject, and also as a subject, how you felt throughout those two processes inside of the same hypnotic induction. Do you get the idea? All get the idea, yeah? All right, guys, so it'll be 60 seconds in total, different partner, off you go. All right, can you get the mic ready? So, stand up if you have something to compare and contrast. So how did that go? Over here, behind you, right there.
Actually, I was a very deep trance in me. So when my partner told me that this room is windy, I actually felt it.
You actually felt it?
Yeah.
So when she was trying, because you've been kind of already in that little nice trance space, when she said close your eyes and go into a trance, you went wah into a trance. And this is interesting, isn't it? Something which she attempted to make wrong was actually accepted as correct. What's going on here? Which room was he in? The yes room. This brings us to something very important. And if you take nothing else but this away from here, this will stand you in great stead for the rest of your life. Not everything we think is true is really true. Most things we think are true are only true because we think they are so. We believe it, but you have absolutely no way of actually knowing it. May I give you an example of this? How many of you think that the world is flat? Hands up. The little tongue coming out of your mouth has said it all, right? So it would be generally acceptable that the world, that the planet we're on right now is relatively spherical, right? How do you know? Have you measured it? Have you done the mathematics that prove the curvature of the Earth as a global phenomenon? Are you an astronomer and can deduce it from the planetary motions and so on? Have you actually done any of the work to prove it for yourself? Have you gone physically into outer space to see the planet turning enough to be able to figure out this is actually one big round thing going around? No. Where you got the idea from? It's because it wasn't even books, because someone told you, usually someone in school or sometimes at home, the parent tells you, and you just believed it. And you were ridiculed if you were even going to consider an alternative point of view, or if you insisted on proving it to yourself. Why would you bother doing that? Of course, everyone knows it's true. And we look back on a period of our history where we think others were foolish for thinking the world is flat. But we have chosen to believe this as blindly as they did. And it's very important that you don't fool yourself about this truth with a capital T. Things are only true with a little t to the extent that we believe them. Even if it happens to be wrong, and the real truth is something totally different, it is irrelevant for that human being until you can make something that was wrong into something that is true, just like the windiness in the room. Do you get the idea? If you examine most of the things you hold to be true inside of your life, from the laws of physics through to relationship issues and all the rest of it, I suspect that a preponderance of what you hold to be true is only true with a little t. Because most of us don't take the effort, and there's a lot of effort to think things through fully, to even approximate what might be a more universal truth with a capital T. We'll save this one for later. There's another little rant, but actually it's a very useful one for hypnosis. So what happened to make something that was false into something that was true? What happened in this situation? He moved rooms. He went from the no room, or at least from the corridor, where he could have gone any direction, into a room where he was willing to accept ideas, not without analysis, but without criticism. There's a difference between being critical in your thinking and being critical as a person, or using criticism. You understand the difference? It's a nuance that we've kind of eroded in our culture. One looks at information and finds out, is there a logical flow to this? Is there actually value to these ideas? Do they flow conceptually? The other is looking really from the no room to break something down and show its valuelessness. It destroys. That is the critical factor in action. And we make the mistake in our culture to think that analysis equals criticism. It does not. They used to, but the word criticism was corrupted, I think, over time to become more critical in this sense. You get the idea? Anyone here work in a corporation? A larger corporation, hands up. You'll appreciate this one. It's the same that happens when someone walks into your office and says, let me give you some feedback. The reason they're laughing is because this was something introduced in the 60s and 70s, and then it got adopted more in the 80s and 90s as a tool for people to be able to exchange ideas without feeling threatened, right? It got corrupted into basically an unbridled tongue lashing under the acceptable framework of it was just feedback. I was only doing what you told me. So they destroy the spirit of the tool by abusing it in action. You get the idea? So if you get someone into the right room inside their mind, things that weren't true will become true. Their mind will make it true because it needs to be able to accept it. That is the essence of hypnosis right there, isn't it? And the skill becomes how to move someone into the yes room, especially if they started in the no room, doesn't it? So with that idea in mind, or that question in mind, what other experiences did you have in that last exercise? Or have you kind of run out of thoughts now? Stand up and we'll get the microphone to you.
For me, it was the biggest difference was the contrast. So going from the no or the disagreement that Jakob was doing, it was almost like deep sea diver falling off a shelf.
Yep.
The first suggestion of yes took me really deep, really good.
So there's a couple of things going on here. Did anyone have the opposite experience, by the way, that when you had all the no's and you had the trance team is like, yeah, I'm not really into this, and then it's only when they started going to yeses that suddenly started warming up again. Did anyone have a more gradual version of that? Hands up. So there's two different things that are going on here. It's really the same principle in action, but in different directions. Your version of it, the no's were keeping you in the no room enough, so it's like someone's trying to drag you out of the yes room into the no room. But because you already know, at least unconsciously, that the yes room is where it's pleasant, not a no room, the yes room is where you know, it's not the no room. That's another style. Your mind wants to stay there. It's like, no, it's just the happy room. I want to stay there. So when he's forcing you out of the yes room by giving you incorrect facts, you're tolerating it, and it's basically building frustration, so when the frustrator is being removed, it's created more impetus, right? Has anyone here ever been housebound for a longer period of time, either because they've got a project they've got to finish or because they've been ill, and they really just have, they get, you know, the idea of cabin fever when you're stuck in a place for too long? How do you feel when you suddenly get out? Isn't it like, oh, I'm here, baby, I'm going to party tonight, yeah. Bring out the milk and the cookies, because I'm staying up late. You know what I mean? That's an example, again, of using frustration as an anticipation builder, because you couldn't. When you can, you do more. Anyone here ever been on a diet? That's one of the reasons why diets don't work. If a diet is based on denial, all that you're doing is you're building psychological energy to do more of the bad behavior when the diet is quote-unquote finished. That's one of the secrets to dieting, by the way. Diets do not exist. Diets make people fat, full stop. And there is plenty of research to demonstrate this. Not because they necessarily won't lose weight in the moment. It's the fundamental attitude that's the problem. A diet has an idea of a conclusion. It is a goal, a destination. to stay slim or fit is a lifestyle. It is about the journey, not the destination. Those people making it about their destinations will yo-yo at best for the rest of their life. Most likely is they yo-yo for a while, give up, and then balloon out and basically roll for the rest of their lives. I'm sorry, but that's the nature of how diets are. Psychologically, it does not work with human beings. The ones that do succeed are the ones that turn into a lifestyle, which is something where they enjoy the whole journey. It becomes, this is just how I am. It's part of what they're doing. Do you get the idea here? So by denying Kieran the ability to go into the yes room, he created enough frustration that when he was allowed, deep sea diving right off the shelf. But that was only because you have the prepared context of having had all these other little pleasant experiences here that set you up for that, right? Others of you had a more frustrating experience, a less pleasant one, did you not? And it took longer once you lost the trust that someone here was talking about to build it back up again, didn't it? Go ahead. Just stand up and we'll get the mic to you more easily.
Yeah, it was just something I was wondering there. When you were thinking about someone who's in the no room, if you were with somebody who is clearly resistant, does it also work in the opposite direction? If you started off giving them things that plainly were not true, then you could move them maybe from a no to maybe. And if there's a maybe, then that could be a yes to a yes to a yes.
You're ahead of the game.
Aha, thank you.
Do you want me to address that quickly now, and we'll discover it a bit more when the time comes? What you've just discovered is how to hijack resistance. Right. I'll say more on that. Just remind me about that tomorrow. This is not for today right now. But yes, that's exactly how to hijack someone's resistance. And there's lots of eloquent ways you can do that. And the essence of it is exactly what you just said there. Okay? But coming back to the ideas of no's and yeses, who here noticed, and please, I need a relatively full sample of this, who here noticed that when you got your initial no's as a subject, and then the trance themes were pulled up, you were more resistant towards those ideas, the pleasantness, the relaxation, the comfort. Even though you wanted to accept them, it just felt wrong somehow, yeah? All right, put your hands down again. Those of you who just put your hands up, who found that once the yeses started coming in, it took a little while, but eventually when you got to the second lot of trance themes, they were much more pleasant than the first set. Hands up. So moving someone into the no room or the yes room is a habit. In other words, when people are being forced in a situation where they're saying no repetitively, and I will say this in a crude way, but there's a refinement to this that will come in. So this is not as black and white as it may sound. When you move someone to the no room and get them to reject ideas constantly, they'll get to the point where they'll reject more ideas. Right? That's what happens when you got some no's, you just little trance themes, and then, yeah, I kind of would like the idea, but no, not working for me. Right? The same is the opportunity in the reverse. When you get people more into the yes room, and you present your suggestions, in this case in the form of pleasantness, relaxation, and so on, they form that mental habit of saying yes. They go into the yes room as a matter of habit or routine, and then it continues in the relationship. So then people like Kieran will find that they were looking for the opportunity to say yes, even though they were being forced to say no, which is another little psychological paradigm you can then use as a lever, right? Now this is where it gets very important, folks. If being in the no room makes things false, and being in the yes rooms makes things true, even if they weren't true before to start with, just like the wind thing and the wind phenomena that we were talking about. And if our experiences will, are accurate enough to say that getting someone to agree will build agreement, and so the yes room gets built up more and more, then this is the important point. Truth, at least the way most people think about it, is a habit. It is a mental habit. It becomes true because they're used to thinking of it as true, or it's in a context where enough other things are accepted as true that it slips right along with it. Truth becomes more of a question of mental habit than truth, as the way most people think of it. Do you get the idea? But this is the important thing. There's a difference between what's true with a capital T and what's true with a small t. This is the truths with a small t. That's because the nature of how most people make things true is through the law of association. They've been told it often enough by the right people in the right context, and it becomes true because of that. That means that we can train or change virtually any reality, because most of the things people think are true have no capital letters in it. You understand what I mean by this? This is very important if you want to become an influencer. Now notice I do make a distinction between those two kinds of true. And the reason for it is because I'm not a big believer in the sophism, which is basically, yeah, make whatever true whatever you feel like. It's not a big deal. There is a big deal. If you just make things that are true, that are convenient to be true for that point in time, you will do a lot of damage in the long term, either to a relationship or to a group of people or a society in general. Because, well, there's a huge amount of philosophy behind it, I guess, but essentially, if you keep changing what's true to make what's convenient true, you'll eventually lose trust. Because when people are looking for truth, they're looking for a measure of certainty, or at least longevity within it. Does that make sense? But just because they're looking for it doesn't mean that what they found has a capital letter in it. And this is particularly important for something we'll talk about after the break. So with that happy thought, let's take a brief break. It's now 8 minutes to 4. Let's just take 10 minutes so we can kind of just refresh that.